Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. As you can see today we're doing a tier list and this is of Path of Radiance. We recently finished an attempt at maniac mode Iron Man, so I figured as we've been doing when we finish all the Iron Mans here on the channel, we'll do a tier list and I'll give my thoughts on the units. Maniac mode as a whole, it definitely wore on me this time. I feel like I've enjoyed it in the past and I tend to be kind of a defender of it, but Maniac mode is really rough this time. I don't know if I'll be doing it again for a while, but I do like Path of Radiance. It is one of my favorite Fire Emblem games, and definitely, I think along with Sacred Stones, the ones I have the most nostalgia for, so it'll be fun to do this. Now, of course, as always when I make a tier list, feel free to agree or disagree. These tier lists are based off my own experiences, and that revolves mostly around Maniac mode or the hardest difficulties and then Iron Mans, so that's going to skew quite a bit which characters I value and why. So yeah, again, disagree, agree, totally fine. Let me know in the comments if you'd like, but let's get right into it. We're going to start with, of course, Astird. Now, a few things to mention about this game, and this is going to be important for Astird. Astird is a bow knight, which is basically a cavalier, but she can only use a bow until she's promoted. There is Canto in this game, and I guess it's called like Super Canto or something, but basically there's Canto in the GBA games, but you can only like use Canto when you trade a rescue or something. In this game, you get to Canto whenever you take any action, and that includes combat. So Canto is extremely good in this game, and it is on the basically Cavaliers, but they're like locked to specific weapons, and then you get to choose a weapon when they promote, which is pretty cool. I would highly recommend choosing axes for all the knights because damage is really important in this game, Astird as well. And it's nice for her because being bow locked is pretty rough, so the ability to use axes or lances, I would not pick swords, when she promotes is really nice. There's also an item that actually comes on her called the Knight Ward. The Knight Ward is an item that you can equip. It's kind of weird. You can put it on knights, paladins, and then I guess they're also called knights, but the general knight, you know, the armored knights, and then soldiers. And it gives you a plus 30% speed growth buff when it's equipped, and plus 2 defense and plus 2 res, which is really nice. It pretty much guarantees speed on anyone you have it equipped on when you train them. Now, Astird comes as a pretty weak looking unit. She's only a level 1 bow knight when you get her, and again, she is bow locked. So you may think that she's pretty crappy, but she has Paragon, which doubles experience growths, or rates, I guess, which is really good. Her growths are also pretty solid, and of course bolstered by that Knight Ward. Astird is pretty darn weak, but it's just so easy to train her. And one of the big benefits of Astird as well isn't just getting her to a paladin, but once she's a paladin, she'll also accelerate. So even like in the end, she's going to catch up and surpass characters like Oscar and Kieran. I don't know that she's like stronger still, but it's nice that she gets like so many free levels. I think I'm going to put her in A. I could see her being in B, but like I just think she's so easy to train, and once she's a paladin, she's just such a beast, because she gets so many like free levels essentially. And again, her growths are good, so I could see her in B for sure. But I think a pretty solid A tier unit. Again, buoyed by the Knight Ward and the her class. And next we have Bastion, very interesting unit to talk about second. Unfortunately for this game, the 2 pre-promote stages you get in it use knives and not staves, which just sucks. That's pretty obvious. Knives are absolutely useless in this game, especially on these sages that have like 10 to 15 strength at most, which is just not enough to do anything. It's a real bummer. Bastion's not terrible. He can offer a little bit of combat, but magic's not particularly strong in this game. And again, the inability to heal just takes away so much utility that he would have otherwise. So I'm going to put him in probably like D territory. Actually, I should probably have an F, right? Yeah, let me make an F really quick. Not that he's going to be an F, I don't think, but I will make an F, I think, for this, because there is at least one unit that I'm thinking of that could probably be an F. But yeah, I don't think Bastion's in C. I don't think he offers that much utility, but I don't think he's quite an F tier unit. I do think you can deploy him and he can like be okay, which I think is reasonable for D. All right, next will be a Boyd. So Boyd's a unit. It looks like he's missing his hair in this in this picture. I guess Astird is also cut off. Boyd is a unit. Actually, he should probably be in C, so I'm glad I put him there. I actually wanted to train him on this this past attempt at the Iron Man that I did, because I was kind of curious how good he would be. In theory, I like Boyd a decent amount because he uses axes, and he has really good strength growth. Like he'll cap strength at like 30 once he promotes basically every time, and he's pretty fast. The problem is he's not fast enough to double, especially once you get to the late game, so he'll fall off quite considerably. And his defense is really rough. His res is actually okay, but his defense is really rough. You really want defense in this game. I don't think he's a terrible unit. I think no matter what, he'll give you some early combat, and I think if you do train him, he can be good, especially in the mid game, but he definitely falls off toward the end, and I'm just not really sure that he's worth it over a lot of the other units. So I think he's just kind of a nice little utility unit at the beginning, which I think makes him belong in C, to be honest. So I think a reasonable place for him. But yeah, I was fairly underwhelmed by Boyd, but I did think he was okay. Next we have Braum. Now, if you watched my playthrough, you'd think that Braum is the GOAT. He was quite good for me. He kept speed. I gave him the boots. He was amazing. Definitely our best unit throughout the playthrough. Although I will say this, even if you use the Night Ward, generals cap at 24 speed, which is not enough to double most things in the end game. So caps actually kind of do matter in this game for the end game. I don't think I'm going to put him that high. I'm not really sure where to put him, to be honest. I do kind of like knights in this game, just because the Night Ward fixes their speed issue, but you have to put a lot of investment into them. I do like defense. I'm going to put him in C. I don't think he offers the same kind of early combat as Boyd, but I do think he can end up being a pretty darn strong unit. Even if you don't go the Night Ward route, I think just having a lot of defense in this game is pretty valuable, so I don't know what to really say about Boyd. Braum, but I don't think he's amazing, but I think he can be okay. Maybe he should be down here in D, to be honest. Like, you really got to put a lot of effort into him for him to get anything out of it. He's pretty weak at base. Yeah, maybe D. But if you do put effort into him, he can be really good, for sure, especially with the Night Ward. But the Night Ward only buffs up his speed growth to like 50-ish%, so even then it's no guarantee. Next we have Khil. Similar to Bastion, Khil has knives over staves, which is really bad. It hurts a lot of her utility. But she's recruited a lot earlier, and her stats are like fairly comparable to Bastion's. And the much earlier recruit means she can still like kind of double and deal more damage. Also, she uses Thunder Magic, which is nice. I think she can use like all of the siege tomes at base too. I think Khil is actually a pretty good unit. If she used staves, I would definitely have her in B. I think I'm going to put her in C. Maybe she's a little better. She's not bad. But her utility is just not that wide. But the ability to use all the siege tomes are great in this game. And she has pretty good bases for like where she's recruited. So I think a solid unit. Okay, sorry about that cut. I just want to make sure that the background music wasn't too loud. If it is too loud, I apologize. I don't know. I just kind of got some Path of Radiance music to play in the background, so I don't know. But in any case, next up we have a unit that's just not recruitable in Graal. I don't know. He dies, so whatever. I mean, he has to die and isn't recruitable, so, and he's tiny for some reason, so I don't know. F tier, I guess. Whatever. Who cares? Next up we have David or Devdan. I don't know which one he is in this game, although apparently they're different people. I don't know the lore behind this, because there's two different units in the two different games that maybe are different people. Don't know. I think it's David. He is, he's okay. He's not recruited too late. His bases are decent, ish. And of course he can use the Night Ward, which is kind of nice, but you probably won't be training him very much. It's hard to say he belongs in C. I don't know that his utility is really that high. Maybe in D. I don't know. Maybe he's a C tier unit and I'm just, frowning at him a little bit. He is someone I've deployed throughout my couple of playthroughs a few times, and he's been okay. But I think his utility is pretty small. And he's not one of these units like Khil and Bastion you can still be deploying on like endgame chapters and they can still do okay. Whereas David, like, he's only really deployable in the mid game, and you don't really need to go that deep into your roster in the mid game, so. Next up is Alicia. I mean, Alicia is available for like 3 chapters. I'll give Alicia a very small niche. There are very few healers in this game. There are 3 mages you can promote, and then there's Rhys. That's it, other than Alicia. So very few healers. She can use Physic at base, which is nice, and she's a good class. I think that saves her for being F. I do think she offers enough utility. She was good on my playthrough, but her magic's low. She's not even that good of a healer. Yeah, I think easy D tier. She's just not available for enough time, I think. When she's available, I do think she's genuinely good. Let me turn down that a little bit. But I think she's just available too small of the time, or too little of the time to be that good. Next we have Enna. So Enna is a dragon. She's not bad. It just depends, like, should she be in D tier? She's a decent user of the Delphi, or sorry, not Delphi Shield, Demi-Band. In the end game, I like that Enna has like a ton of bulk. Her speed is okay. She's good HP, good defense, and good res, which is nice. But again, she's just available for such a small amount of the time. I think her utility is like pretty comparable to like Bastion, so I think I'm gonna put her in D. I think she's just available too small of the time. Kind of like Alicia. Like, she's pretty comparable to Alicia, to be honest. I might be undervaluing her a little bit, but I just think she's available for too small amount of time. Next we have Gatry. So Gatry can do a lot of the same stuff Braum can do, but he's recruited way earlier. Well, I guess he's technically recruited earlier and later, but his utility in the early game is really nice, and then his utility when he's re-recruited still exists. And I still think he's going to be stronger than Braum in most situations. I don't know that that really makes him B tier. I think that probably makes him pretty comparable to like Boyd as just kind of a decent little unit in the mid game that can give you some combat. I think the fact that he's recruited at the very beginning and there's a lot of utility there is nice, even though he's not available on every map. I think he's decent, a solid unit. Again, can be quite strong with the Night Ward in the end, but yeah, it's just like low movement and stuff. You know, with Kanto being as good as it is in this game, I wouldn't really recommend training him, but even if you don't train him, his utility is still definitely there. All right, next we have Joffrey, another unit that's just recruited really late, but I like Joffrey a bit more than these other units I've been talking about. Joffrey has the benefit of having the Paragon skill similar to Astird, which is really nice. And if you get Joffrey to level 20, which is pretty easy to do, or at least it's not super difficult to do, he actually ends up being kind of comparable to your other Paladins, which is a really good thing. But it still takes him a little while to get there. Should he be a B tier unit? I think he's just recruited too late to be a B tier unit. I'm still going to put him in C, but his bases are pretty good. His class is good, and the Paragon skill is really beneficial. So I do like Joffrey. I don't really think he should quite be in B, though. He's just available for such a small amount of the game. All right, next we have Gifka. Okay, I'm gonna make a new thing here, which is just royals. So for those that don't know, at the end of the game, on the final chapter, on maniac mode, it's after you defeat the first stage of Astird, you are offered either Gifka, Tabarn. Is Tabarn here? Yeah, Tabarn and Nesala. Actually, you know what? Okay, I hate to keep doing this, but does this still appear? Okay. I feel like I did this on the last one. Okay, the last one is Nesala. Technically, Nesala can help you, but he's almost assuredly the worst of the worst one of the royals that you can call in, and he's a bad guy for like most of the game. In fact, there's a chapter where you have to avoid dying straight up to him, so fuck that dude. In any case, the royals can all be called in at the end. I don't really know how to rank them. I guess they would be like F tier. They're available for such a small little part of the game. They are useful, but I mean, how do you rank a character like that? It depends on how you rank a Goda, I guess, and that's really up to you. I don't know. They're fine. And next we have Har. This is not Radiant Dawn, so Har is not the best character in the game. Let me take a drink really quick. My throat's all dry. Har is like okay. He's a good class. He's kind of like Joffrey. He's recruited a chapter earlier and he's a better class, but he has, I think, kind of worse bases because his speed's pretty bad and he doesn't have the Paragon skill. So I think he's going to offer most of the same utility. So I think a C tier unit, a fine unit. When you get to the end game and you're kind of going into your roster to deploy random units, Har is a pretty good one to deploy. So you'll get some combat out of him probably, but he's pretty weak. He's just recruited so late. But I think his good class and solid bases is good enough to at least be C tier. All right, next up is Ike. All right, Ike's kind of a weird one to decide on because at the beginning of the game, he's okay. Then when he promotes, he's still okay. And then in the end game, when he gets the Ragnell, he's like the best unit in the game. But that takes a very long time to get to. I mean, it's nice that he's recruited for like the entire game. I think B tier maybe. You can do a lot of stuff with them in the end game. You can do Aether, you can do like Resolve, Wrath, you can do Adept stuff. You can do whatever you want. There's a ton of different skills you can put on him. They're all great. And again, the Ragnell's busted. But swords are really bad in this game. And even though his stats are quite good, like it takes him until the end of Daybreaks to promote, which is really bad. I think he's okay. I think his early utility and the fact that he's deployed throughout the entire game makes him like a C tier unit. And then the fact that he's the best unit in the end game, I think bumps him up to B tier. So that's why I'm putting him in B tier, but I think that's up to you. All right, next up we have Illyana. Illyana's interesting. Again, I put a decent amount of stock into mages in this game, not for offensive abilities because magic blows in this game. It's funny because there's a lot of wyverns in the end game, a lot of paladins, but a lot of wyverns. And if this was like for Emblem 6, I love characters like Lu, but mages don't really do that well against those units. They do okay against wyverns, but there's so many paladins and they just don't do well against paladins at all. But healing utility is nice, and you need to make your own healers basically outside of Rhys. So She has some utility there. It's hard for me to put her anything less than B tier, I think. She also uses Thunder Magic, which is cool. Little bit of offensive output, the ability to heal. It's a nice combination. I could see her being a bit lower, but I value units like this quite a bit. Healing in this game is also, like, you need to be healing a lot. There's a lot of chip damage to go around, so. Oh, Mist. Okay, scratch everything I said. I just completely forgot about Mist. Mist actually died on our last playthrough. Every time I say that there's only the mages and Rhys as healers, there's also Mist. We'll talk about Mist when we get to her, but yeah. I'm dumb. Mist is a character as well. Mist is, yeah. We'll talk about her when we get to her, but there is another healer. Anyways, next up is Janaf. Oh, man. Most of the Laguz in this game are kind of mediocre. Janaf does have the benefit of transforming immediately on chapters, which is really good. Leith has this as well, which makes her a pretty solid unit. But Janaf is just recruited much later than Leith and Mordecai, and his stats are just not very good. I'm going to put him somewhere in D tier, probably the bottom of D tier. Flying utility is nice. You can get maybe a little bit of combat out of him, but he can't even double when you get him, and his attack is just so low. The problem with Laguz in this game is they don't have 1-2 range, and they're locked to whatever, like, attacking, you know, claw or fang or whatever. And the might on these weapons, I guess you could say, is just not very high. You can't, like, forge him a weapon or anything. Laguz are... Some are decent in this game, but Janaf is not one of them. And next we have Jill. Jill is one of the best units in the game, for sure. Easy S tier. Oh, actually, I think I'm a little bit off. Oh, no, I'm not. I keep forgetting that they cut off the people. Yeah, Jill's a beast. She's a little weak when you get her, because, yeah, her stats are just... She, like, doesn't double anything. She gets double. She doesn't hit that hard. But highly recommend putting investment into her. She'll end up being just a really powerful unit. Again, Canto's great. Flying, also great. Even on Maniac mode, even if you're playing slow and defensively, the ability to push, like, Siege Tomes and stuff, so valuable. Really, really good. And Wyverns and stuff like that. And she gets to use axes when she promotes and has enough speed to double pretty consistently, even if her cap isn't the best. And then she has enough strength and defense to take hits. So really good unit. Definitely one of the best in the entire game. Next up, we have Kieran, another really good unit. I don't think an S tier because there's enough flying, but really good. Isn't recruited too late. Gets to use axes right away, which is really cool because you have a good axe rank with him. Like I said, Knights/Paladins are just insanely good in this game. But the question for Kieran is, what weapon do you choose when you promote? Because normally you do axes, but you can already use axes. I don't really know. That's up to you. I think that you can go, you know, probably lances, but it's up to you. He's just good, yeah. Once you get the Night Ward, you can pretty much guarantee him speed. I will say Kieran's bases, kind of like Jill's, are a little weak. And because his growths are good, but not like... He doesn't have like insane growths anywhere, unless you're using the Night Ward. There is a chance that you can get kind of a crappy Kieran, but most of the time he'll leave himself out, so really good unit. Alright, then we have Largo. Largo is, again, going to fall into one of these very small niche. I don't even know that he belongs in D tier. I love Largo, and I tried to use him on our last playthrough, although he died. Largo just... The problem is he has, like, no defense. He dies to, like, 2 hits, no matter what. And he leaving it doubled... I can't put him in F tier. No, I don't think I can put him in F tier. I think he's good enough to be in a D tier at least. Like, he's not stone useless. You can give him a silver axe and he can at least whack somebody pretty hard. But he's really bad and recruited really late, so not a very good unit. Unfortunately, because he is cool. And he doesn't get to come back for Radiant Dawn, which is really sad. Next up we have Leith. So I mentioned the Laguz not being very good, but I actually like Leith quite a bit. Her bases are really good, her growths are good, and she transforms immediately on chapters and has a lot of movement. That's a really good combination of stuff. She will fall off as the game progresses, but she's recruited early enough. Is Leith an A tier unit? Maybe more like B. Maybe like top of B. I don't know. It's tough. I really do like Leith. She is like really dominant for most of the mid game. I don't know. I'm going to put her in B, but I can see her being an A. I do like Leith quite a bit. But again, just the fact that you have to use Claw really makes her fall off in the end game. And the fact that, like, transforming immediately is good, but unless you use the Demi-Band, which is going to hurt her stats, she won't be transformed for the entire, like, duration of chapters. It's pretty rough, so, but she is really good. Next we have Lucia. Okay, this is the character I was thinking. Whoops, sorry. Going F tier. I hate Lucia. People talk about Carla in Fire Emblem 7 all the time, and rightfully so. She's dog shit, but man, Lucia is awful. Her speed is like barely good enough to double when she's recruited, and that'll fall off. She can't, her strength is terrible, her bulk is terrible. Yeah, I don't know. She's terrible. She's awful. Just a terrible unit. She's cool, but just a terrible unit. All right, next up is Makalov. So Makalov is the one of the, give me 1 second here. Sorry about this. Okay, Makalov is the one of the knights/paladins that might not be that good. He's definitely sort of the odd man out. He's recruited quite a bit later than all three of the other. I guess he's not. He's only recruited like a couple of chapters after Astird. Actually, is it the next chapter after Astird? Yeah, it might not be that much later than Astird, but he doesn't have Paragon like Astird. His bases are also pretty weak for like a level 10 unit. He only has like 10s across the board. Like the rest of them, use the Night Ward, you're basically guaranteed speed, and that makes him a pretty solid unit, but he's definitely worse. I'm going to put him in B. I think all the other ones belong in A, but I'm going to put Makalov in B. I do still think he's good enough for B, just because, like, again, the Night Ward can fix, can guarantee him speed, and his growths are good. But yeah, just his bases aren't very good. He's recruited as the latest one, so. Next it was Marcia. Another one of the best units in the game, if I can get her up there. I think better than Jill. Marcia is just a beast. Another one of these flying utility units that scales really well. Marcia also has way more defense than you'd think from a Pegasus Knight. And her res is good. As far as which one's better between her and Jill, Jill's probably the better unit in the end game, but Marcia has better speed. She's recruited earlier. She has better res, which I actually like. I like the better mix between defense and res than just more pure defense. She doesn't get to use axes though. It doesn't really matter. You can decide for yourself which one's better. I think it's Marcia. Either way, I do think they are two of the best units in the game and both absolute beasts. Would highly recommend using both. But yeah. Next up is Mia. Mia's really bad. Now I will say on my last playthrough, I actually decided to use Mia to kind of test it, and she actually wasn't too bad. I think I undervalue like speed in this game, especially for the end game, is actually like really nice, like a lot of it. So the ability to double consistently is good, but swords just have a really hard time in this game, and enemy bulk is really high. Yeah, Mia's not very good. Somewhere in D, I guess. She doesn't really offer as much utility. She also doesn't really offer any utility. The problem with Mia as well is when she's recruited is like just after the mercenaries, and at that point, like, you're promoting units, you've gotten a bunch of new units, you're about to get Leith and Mordecai, more just like filler to join. Mia doesn't really have a place unless you train her, and she's not worth training, so I don't think she's an F tier unit, but she's not particularly good. This will be Mist. Okay, I apologize to Mist. She is a healer. There is another healer in the game. Mist is good. She seems really crappy, and her stats are for sure, but she's a healer, and when she promotes, she gets a horse. It's hard to argue with that. I don't think she's quite an A tier unit, but I do think she's a B tier unit. Just the ability to get a free healer. You don't have to like promote a mage or anything. Healing's nice. And again, being mounted when she promotes is pretty nice. So I wish she got to use magic when she promoted. The ability to use swords is pretty useless on her, but no, I like her. I think she's pretty good. Next up is Mordecai. Mordecai's recruited with Leith. Unfortunately, Mordecai does not transform at the beginning of chapters. I still think he's a really solid unit. He's also not very fast. I don't really know how to rank him. He's definitely worse than Leith. I don't know if he's enough worse to be like a tier lower. He is like an absolute beast. In the mid game, he's so strong. But he can't like one round. Maybe that's okay. He's like pretty much invincible. No, I still think a B tier unit. I still think better than these C tier units. But not as good as Leith for sure. Again, just not being able to transform immediately on chapters is definitely a big deal. And his speed also sucks. All right, next up is Morim, another pretty good Laguz. He's recruited a bit later. It comes with the Demi-Band. He's a really good user of the Demi-Band. Morim definitely has more of a... he's not as good in the end as Leith or Mordecai, but again, they all kind of fall off. He is good for the mid game. I'll put him maybe like just below Mordecai. He's going to offer a lot of that same stuff. I think he just offers nice utility. You can deploy him pretty much whenever. For like most of the mid game, and he'll just like be fine. And you can even deploy him like kind of toward the end game, and he'll still just be like an okay unit. So I think he's pretty good. All right, next up is Nasir. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get to recruit Nasir on our last playthrough because Ike decided to miss the Luna part of Aether on the Black Knight. But I don't really know that Nasir is that much better than Enna. I think they're pretty much the same unit, so I'm just going to put him next to Enna. I can't imagine that Nasir would do things that Enna really can't. Maybe I'm wrong about that and he is much better, but I think they're pretty much going to offer the same utility. So he is the better unit, I think, but they're like both fine. Next up is Nephany. Nephany's a really fun unit, but I don't think a particularly good unit. Where do I want to put her? She's kind of like a Mia, but she uses lances. I will say her defense is actually pretty good. She's fast. That's a nice combination. Lances are pretty good. The Night Ward can help with the speed, although she doesn't really need it. But her strength is pretty low. Wrath is also a pretty cool skill. I just don't think, like, you need to offer some utility whether I trained you or not to be in C. So I think definitely D for her. Maybe like next to Braum. This D tier might be a little funky too. I just don't think like again, this is geared toward maniac mode, and these units in D tier, well, you can train some of them to be okay. They won't offer you anything if you don't. So yeah, I think a D tier unit for sure. Although she is really fun to use. All right, next up is Oscar. Oscar, I think, is probably the top of A. I think he's the best of the knights. Yeah, he's just good. He's just recruited immediately. Really easy to train. Has really good defense. He's fast. It's not much else to say. He's just good. Pretty boring. A good unit. Yeah, I think pretty easy top of A. Next up we have Ranulf. Ranulf, I think kind of fits into the same category of Har and Joffrey. He's recruited pretty late. In fact, in the same chapter as Har, so that means one earlier than Joffrey. He's a pretty good user of the Demi-Band. He can do some combat. He can take some hits. Pretty small niche, but you know he's okay. It's fine, reasonable. Next up we have Rayon. So normally I put dancers in A. Sometimes I put them in S. I'm gonna put Rayon in S. I love Rayon. He is a dancer with flying utility. When he transforms, he gets to dance for everyone around him, and he heals equal to his magic to adjacent units at the start of your turn. Those are just really powerful things. I love Rayon. So much fun to use. An amazing dancer. I think maybe one of the best dancers in like all of Fire Emblem. It's just that stuff adds up. To yeah, just be a great unit. Love him. Most of what he's doing is just being a dancer, which again is an A tier / S tier unit I think already, but there's a lot more utility that he can provide, which is really good. All right, next up we have Rhys. I like Rhys quite a bit. He's your only early game healer until you get Mist, and even then he's like a way better healer than Mist. Yeah, there's not much else to say. He's a really high magic healer with a great staff rank. You can even use light magic when he promotes, which isn't super useful, but it's fine. Just a great unit. I really like Rhys. I think if Mist was recruited earlier, if there was like 2 or 3 early game healers, you know, his utility would go down a little bit, but there's just not, so. Next up is Rolf. Yeah, definitely an F tier unit. Rolf just stinks, man, unfortunately. This is not a game conducive to snipers. One of the problems with snipers and magic users and stuff in this game is effective damage is really low, which means they don't get a lot of bonuses. And that's really the only niche that a unit like this would have. He's recruited at the same time as Mist, but Mist gets saved by the fact that she's a healer, and healing is nice in this game. Rolf's an archer, and archers don't matter in this game. He's just so weak. Terrible unit. Kind of fun to train. Next up is Shinon. Shinon is a joke when he's re-recruited, but he's good at the beginning of the game. He's basically Gatry, except Gatry's still pretty good. When he's re-recruited, Shinon is dog shit. It's hard to put him in F because he does offer so much utility at the beginning. I'm gonna put it at the bottom of D. Apparently this just is the D tier game for me. It's like Fire Emblem 6 is a C tier game. This is my D tier game. Yeah, he's just Gatry without the... He's basically just doesn't get re-recruited. Like, he's kind of fun to use because his growths are really high, but he's terrible. But he is good at the beginning of the game, and he's good for setting kills, which is cool. Next up is Soren. So Soren basically is the same as Illyana. He's better because he's recruited earlier, but he's got basically all the same stuff going on. I don't think he really belongs in A tier. I'm going to just put him in B, I think, next to Illyana. He does have Adept, which is cool. And I think his stats are going to end up being better than Illyana even in the end. And he's recruited earlier, so he's definitely better, but he's just doing basically the same stuff as Illyana. Next up is Soth. Soth is really bad. I'm just going to put Soth in F. Soth is one of 2 thieves you get in the game. His offensive stats are just non-existent, and there's really not that much chest utility in this game, so I just kind of find him useless. Yeah. He's a good unit in Radiant Dawn, but not here. Then we have Stefon. I actually like Stefon quite a bit. I think he's probably even a B tier unit, maybe even higher. I don't know why there's that white background to him, but Yeah, he's good. He's recruited at the same time as Morim and offers like very similar utility to Morim. He has Astra, which can help with his offensive capabilities. He's really fast to the point where he even doubles like toward the end game. It's funny that Myrmidons and Swordmasters are absolute ass in this game, but Stefon, it just has really good stats that it transcends his class. It's good. Next we have Tanith. Okay, so Tanith, I think borders S and A. I'm gonna put her in S. I think it's hard not to put her in S. Here's the thing. Tanith is a Falcon Knight, which is a great class. She has solid bases. She's recruited fairly late, but not too late. But the real reason that Tanith is an S tier unit for me, and the reason, I think if she didn't have the Reinforce ability, she'd be an A tier unit, but I think Reinforce brings her up to S. So Reinforce allows you to bring in some ally units twice a chapter. So it's a Falcon Knight and 2 Pegasus Knights. It definitely falls off by the end game, but even then, they give you they distract Siege Tome users. They'll target Siege Tome users. When you first recruit her, the Falcon Knight in particular is just really strong. They just offer you a ton of utility, and Tanith herself is actually capable of doing pretty good combat even at the end of the game. So I could see her being an A and not S. I have been criticized in the past for putting too many people in S, so I think that's fair. But Reinforce is just so powerful, and I still like her quite a bit. So next up we have Tyranio. I think Tyranio does a very similar job to these units. He's a much worse class than all 3 of these units, especially Har and Joffrey and Khil. But I like his bases. I think you can deploy him. Maybe he should actually be a D tier unit. C might be too high for him now that I think about it, because his class is really bad and he gets doubled by everything. I think Tyranio is fine. I think he's a decent filler unit, but probably not as good as these units in C. Next up we have Titania. Okay, so I think Titania should either be here or here, depending on where you put her. I am putting her at the top of S. For me personally, Titania is a Jagan, very similar to Seth in that she has really good bases, absolutely dominates the early game, and then has good enough growths to scale. Unlike Seth, Path of Radiance enemies are really strong as you scale throughout the game, so she actually does fall off eventually. She's still fine in the end game, especially if you can get her to 20, but she does definitely fall off. So in the end, she is much worse than Jill and Marcia and Tanith, but early game maniac mode is really tough, and Titania is so necessary for that. She's still great in the mid game, and I think she can still scale at least okay into the end game, even though she does fall off. So I personally love putting these type of Jagan units in these difficult games at the top of S, but I think she should be an S, but you can put her wherever in S you want. It's up to you. Next up we have Tormund. So Tormund is a mage similar to Sword and Illyana, but is recruited quite a bit later. He does have the Celerity skill, and you can't take off skills in this game. Well, you can, but you can't give them to anybody else. So Celerity gives him +2 movement, which is huge. It's really good. But he's just really weak on recruits. I think Tormund, I think I'm going to put him in C. So I've been putting units in C that either give like some kind of combat utility for a niche in the game. Tormund doesn't do that, but I think Tormund is good enough, like, because of Celerity and the ability to heal and the Sage stuff. Like, I think he's good enough to want to train, but he's not nearly as good as the mages in B. So I think a C tier unit, you know, I think that's pretty reasonable. Next up is Yulki. Is Yulki F tier? Probably not F tier. I think D tier. He's definitely worse than Janaf. I don't know, you can put him wherever you want. His bases are really rough, and he doesn't transform immediately on chapters. That's just not good. It's just not where you want to be. It's just not a good unit. Next up is Volk. Where do you want to put Volk? Volk has a similar thing going on to Soth. Probably a D tier unit. Again, like chief utility, chest utility just isn't really that valuable in this game. I will say this, actually, I forgot to mention this with Soth. Stealing utility is actually amazing in this game, and if you train Volk a little bit, you can steal a lot of physics stabs. I'm not really good at stealing in this game, but maybe if you are good at stealing, which you should be, maybe you should be bumped up to like C or maybe even B. I don't know, Volk's a tricky one. You guys will have to let me know what you think about Volk. He's a tricky one, I think, because I wasn't thinking about the thieving utility. His combat's terrible, and there is still utility. There are still chests throughout the game, and maybe the stealing utility makes him a B tier unit. I don't know. I'm gonna put him in C, but I'm not really sure. You'll have to let me know what you think about Volk. And then we have Zahark. Zahark's just like basically a worse Mia, I guess. What am I doing? He's basically just the same as Mia. Like, he's recruited later. I think his bases are better than Mia's, but at that point, the game is more difficult. Again, sword's really bad. It's tough to get value out of a Myrmidon in this game. Yeah, really bad unit. And that's it. And that is it. Yeah, this is my tier list. Looks a little more funky than I was expecting. Yeah, I don't know. My tier lists are definitely more of a train of thought thing, or train of thought? Whatever the word is, you know, like I just kind of make them. I don't know why there's so many units in D, but there are, so whatever. Again, I hope you enjoyed. If you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know down in the comments. I don't think we'll probably be, actually I may do this for Radiant Dawn. So Radiant Dawn is really hard to tier list because everything gets split up into so many different parts, but we may mess around with the tier list and try to make it work. But yeah, yeah, again, I hope you enjoyed. If you agree or disagree, feel free to let me know down in the comments. We will be, actually, we just started Radiant Dawn. I'm actually recording this later on after I just did the first part of Radiant Dawn. So if you're interested in that, the videos will be coming to YouTube, and I just streamed the first part. So yeah, yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.